heading over to maybe. Okay. Last thing here. There we go. On all platforms. Okay. So hello, Mason.
Awesome.
I am Vivi Henriette of Art of the Zodiac. And we are here for our very casual talk on Mars, Mars, Mars.
Heck yeah. Let's yeah, no, this is fun. One of the I guess yeah, my name's Mason Merrill. Uh
I didn't do a very good
I
job at introducing you. I didn't even say
no, you're
astrological masonry,
no, don't
celestial
even worry about
priest.
it. No, don't even worry about it. No, that's no, I totally honestly like when I do my lives, I'm just like I'm just like one thing after the other, but you do it very well. And sometimes honestly like a simple just like, hey, how you doing? Like, it's just casual. We're just, we're just chilling. We're just having fun. Yeah, no, I got astrological masonry. If you want to link up with me, I got consultations I offer. Specifically, actually, one thing I'm really enjoying right now is my Mars focus readings. Have been able to do a couple of those. That's been a lot of fun. So, if you're interested in like talking more about Mars, I'm your Mars man. I'm your guy.
Well,
I love Mars.
it's
Yeah.
I wore the part of Mars. I was really trying here. I just put in the chat, which I realized I could just say this out loud for people who are joining us. You can also, if you come onto YouTube, you can actually comment and have a dialogue with us. So this is on IG Live, but we can't really interact with people that way. So if you're listening there, come join us on YouTube. It's the way of the future. So okay,
Yeah.
let's dive right into this because you and I just like talking astrology with you. Period.
Yeah.
But tell me about your Mars readings. And let's go
Oh
from
yeah.
there. Why Mars? What happens in a reading?
Yeah, no, so I don't know, I love Mars. Mars is just like one of my favorite planets that I like have a consistent relationship. Mars is really strong in my chart, you could say that.
May we
I
ask
think
where and what it's doing? What's the story of Mars in your
oh
chart?
yeah. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, so my Mars rules my 10th house as well as my 5th house. I'm actually in a Mars perfection year right now, getting to the
Okay.
end of it. I'm at the tail end. And it's been a ride. It's been a it's been a lot of fun, but through that, I'll just kind of actually talk a little bit more about its placement. So it's in my second house of Leo. It's aspecting almost every planet in my chart besides the Sun, the ruler of it, as well as Saturn. It is retrograde, which I think sometimes that's one of the caveats of a Mars retrograde is it's kind of differs from and in a certain degree actually the Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. Sometimes this is kind of gets overlooked, but when they are retrograde, they're actually a lot brighter in the sky, and
Mm.
the same thing goes for Mars. Mars, when you have a retrograde Mars in your chart, that's going to
Yeah.
indicate a very strong Mars. But the problem is kind of directing that energy, kind of figuring out a pathway for that energy to flow, kind of channeling that in a way where like for me, I love going to the gym, and it's like a day where I don't go to the gym, it's like I feel like I'm just out of frequency. I'm just like buzzing everywhere. I'm like have this like extra energy where I'm like, okay, like something's got to give. I gotta get out, some like energy, I guess.
Why can't I remember I'm so bad at remembering charts. I remember you have Jupiter and Sag because we have that in common,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
um,
I love that.
but where's your sun? Are you day chart or night chart? I can't remember.
I am a day chart, so I have my sun in the ninth house with Saturn there in
Okay.
Pisces. They're cooking up a lot. They're cooking up a lot of. They're just cooking some stuff up like they are right now.
Welcome to your Saturn return. You've been in it. Um,
Oh yeah.
so
Thank you. I
so
appreciate it.
day chart for those who were just, I mean, people who aren't into astrology. I know we're getting into it for a moment, but day chart Mars said to be a little more challenging. Talk to me about that.
Yes. Yeah, yes. No, totally. Yeah, because like in the day chart, Mars is kind of in the heat of the sun. So there's kind of like this little bit of this exposure that Mars doesn't really enjoy.
Yeah.
Mars definitely is like, no, give me some nighttime, give me some a little bit of stealth, give me a little bit more of kind of a little bit more of ease so that I can be myself without having to kind of like burn out through, yeah, I think there's this kind of tendency with Mars. There's this almost like competition. And so I think that that day chart is kind of like influencing Mars to be run a little bit hotter, a little bit more kind of just more hot and dry. So
Yeah.
basically how that kind of boils down is it's like sometimes like with that heat of the, that are almost like over awareness, because, the sun and Mars, they share a lot of similarities.
Mhm.
Especially like I think one of them is kind of the ego, but they both deal with it in a different way. And sometimes like I think with Mars, it's important to kind of recognize like Mars, you can totally be selfish without being self-centered, but it's important to kind of recognize that. It's important to kind of figure that out, to kind of wage that battle, I guess. But yeah, going back to the day chart. So yeah, day chart, Mars runs a little bit hotter. And I think with that like brightness, there's a little bit of like seeing maybe a little bit too much of things that can kind of drive that Mars to be a little bit more competitive, be a little bit more like, oh God, I got to do this. I got to do this. That's something I got to do, kind of like overwhelming that Mars in a way where Mars needs a little bit more of numbness. I think that's like a better word. Just because like sometimes, it's like important for Mars to have that numbness, kind of get into battle, do the thing, not be, like if you get hurt, not really be aware of it and just kind of keep moving if that's necessary. But yeah, I actually think that that's something that is very interesting with Mars, like the kind of awareness and kind of versus the numbness. Yeah.
Numbness, it's interesting. I wanna point out also Vivian, who's, if you're still here, has, Mars is the master in the nativity, also ruling their 10th and 5th. So if you have any insights, please share them in the chat.
Mm.
Um,
Oh yeah.
Numbness,
Yeah.
right? Thinking like wondering like numbness, but I wonder if there's a better word. I think of like stealthness. I don't know. Thinking about night
Yeah.
consciousness. And also maybe we could talk a little bit about your thoughts between Mars Scorpio, Mars Aries.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, because like Mars, like Mars and Aries is kind of like where Mars gets to business like the most. I think that's like kind of the sign where Mars does kind of operate a little bit better, somewhat.
Yeah.
Even though like Mars and Scorpio, there's kind of like this duality, I think, with like it's kind of a night sign, and Mars is a little bit more dry and hot, like a little bit more masculine, kind of like that yin and yang, or just
Yeah.
kind of a little bit more of a night sect. But it's kind of interesting how that quality of Scorpio plays into that Mars. And I think that there's kind of like this a little bit of kind of I would describe it more so like, like you're kind of saying like this stealthiness where there's this
Mhm.
kind of need to kind of almost be subversive in a way. Scorpio can be very subversive. Also, I think a lot of Scorpio, like through the axes of Taurus and Scorpio,
Yeah.
like kind of some of the fantasies that Mars has to kind of deal with some of these things. Like Scorpio is kind of a volatile sign. That's kind of the waters are ever changing. But also with that, there's kind of a fixed quality of it where it's kind of focused. It's driving towards a point, almost like some pipes that run through, like water that runs through pipes, stuff
Yeah.
like that. That kind of focus to kind of stay like that, to kind of stay moving this direction. Um, but yeah, I think that also Scorpio, there's kind of like this duality with Scorpio where it is kind of interesting how that is ruled by Mars as well. It's a water sign. So there is kind of like this subversion a little bit in a way with Mars. That I think it's like, especially like talking about my favorite, my teacher, Austin Coppock, he kind of talks about Mars and Scorpio as being like the ninja,
Yeah.
being like stealthy in the night, ready to go. And I think that that's kind of one of the interesting qualities with Mars is like instead of being seen, instead of expressing it outwardly, there's this kind of other side where Mars is kind of like being a little bit secret, being a little bit covert, kind of, you don't know what I'm going to do. um, kind of using that to his advantage, using that kind of a little bit more of that quietness, because the water signs are also mute. So I think that there's kind of like that being direct, but almost in a way where you're not going to see it until it happens. That kind
Mm.
of, you don't really realize, I guess, so much where that kind of water is running until it kind of comes up, on you. It's like like a waterfall or something that's kind of just like blasting you in the face, I guess, like a sudden waterfall.
As someone who
But
has
yeah.
Mars and Aries, I always like to tell, like, to be very clear, I fear Mars and Scorpio
Yeah.
because I feel
No.
like Mars, just to not to get into too much, but like I think Mars and Aries is the very like, like we'll just like get in your face and like blow it up. You know what you're getting at all times, whereas the Mars and Scorpio
Yeah.
tends to be like something like a little to fear. But all of
Yeah.
that being said, yeah. What happens in these Mars readings of yours? I know I sort of
Yeah.
detoured a little.
No, of course. No, this is fun. I like, that's kind of how my mind works. I just kind of get like, I weave back in. That, hope that works for everyone else.
I hope. Well, I think
Uh,
I'm talking. Happy Mars return, Vivian, who is on the chat.
Heck yeah. Yeah, happy Mars return, Vivian. Yeah, happy Mars in
What
Aquarius.
a
Black
Mars
Mars in
return
Aquarius.
right now. Thinking about this
Yeah.
Venus Mars. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
love to know your thoughts on this.
Oh yeah, no, for real. Yeah, totally. So I'll talk a little bit about like my Mars reading. So basically, what happens in those Mars readings is I actually really like to help kind of guide people along that Mars journey. One of the things that
Yeah.
I like the most is kind of breaking out of the patriarchy, kind of acknowledging kind of the existence of the patriarchy, and kind of acknowledging like there's a certain way. Like for instance, like when I go to the gym,
Yeah.
like sometimes it's kind of like I maybe get a little bit self-conscious because like, oh, there's a guy that's even younger than me that's kind of lifting a lot more weight, and you can get lost in those numbers. I think there's
Mhm.
something with Mars that kind of gets a little bit lost in like the numbers, a little bit lost in like
Competitiveness.
competitiveness. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like there's this kind of and I think a lot of that competitiveness can kind of be the patriarchy kind of hijacks it in a way where it's kind of like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this to be the most masculine man, you have to do this to just be masculine, like all of these things. Because I work with I love to work with trans folk, especially people that are trying to understand their own masculinity and express that more. That's something that I really love. I love to see that. Because breaking out of the patriarchy and kind of dismantling that and kind of setting a new tone for like none of that applies to anyone. That's not even real. Like on a real level, like people, like if you just have like just Mars stuff in your chart, just like it's completely solar and like Mars focused, there can be a little bit issue because you need that dynamic between Venus and the moon to make things a little bit more interesting. You need to be able to have that coolness. You need to be able to have a little bit of that femininity, honestly, and that's something to be celebrated. Yeah, so like with the Mars readings, what I really like to help is kind of acknowledge, okay, there's a lot of ways that we want to wish to express ourselves, and that's really what Mars does. Is Mars helps us express ourselves. Especially Mars and Aries. There's this kind of there's a little bit of boundaries in a way, which is a little bit different than I think Saturn, because Saturn definitely deals with boundaries, but Mars kind of deals with like a little bit more personal boundaries. Saturn actually can help a little bit with that, I think, definitely, because Saturn deals with like longevity, right? So we kind of have to know a little bit more about Saturn, I think sometimes, especially Mars exalting in Capricorn. I think that's important to bear in mind. Mars actually does better in that Mars and that Saturn ruled sign. Maybe not so much in Aquarius, but still, there's a case to be made that kind of can actually help Mars in the long run.
Yeah.
But so anyways, like with those Mars readings, what I really like to help folks with is kind of acknowledging, okay, what are the ways that you can express yourself? How are ways that you can remediate this placement? Giving tips. One of the main ways I think is like kind of introducing yourself with more Mars children, because that's the thing is like with competition, sometimes we get so invested in kind of the number game. We're kind of so invested in like, okay, this is how I see myself, and I have to make this much money, I have to do this. And that can be very good. It can be very good for us to set those goals, but we really need to not identify or kind of personalize that in a way. Because sometimes, life kind of tends to do this. And, as much as we want to stay rigid, on that kind of path of Mars, sometimes we need to acknowledge a little bit more of the story and not get lost in some of the optics. But,
So to open this up for a moment, because you something that keeps coming up again is competitiveness. If you had to make a list, right? We're thinking about Mars and right, like thinking about how it's working in one's chart. could you make two lists for me? One list is maybe just regardless of placement, what are
Yeah.
some of the strengths and ways that we might want to remediate for Mars, right? Like these are the good things,
Oh yeah.
these constructive things that Mars can bring. And on the
Yeah.
other list, what would we say are some of the less constructive things that Mars can bring?
Oh yeah. No, I love that. That's a really good. Yeah, and I think actually it's like it's a little bit like two sides of the coin sometimes with Mars, because like Mars can like there's kind of instances of like, for instance, like breaking away from something.
Yeah.
Breaking away from something that's bad is actually really good. Like if you're kind of breaking away from, oh, did you hear about people that do XX and X, or do something really bad, murderers or something like that, people
Yeah.
that abuse other people. And Mars is really good at being like, no, that's terrible, like we hate those people, let the gauntlet come down. And so that's something really good. But sometimes with a Mars that's a little bit difficult, a little bit difficultly placed, maybe being in a sign that it's not friendly to, or having an aspect to a planet that it just doesn't do well with. For instance, sometimes Mars and Saturn can actually be very difficult placements. Even though Mars does well in Saturn's sign, it can be actually still really difficult, because Saturn does have a little bit of enmity with Mars. Mars kind of like Saturn, but there's still that enmity.
The two
So with that,
grouchy, that's just sort of, I feel like they're both grouchy in different ways.
yeah,
Right? It's
yeah,
sort of like
no,
aggro, like cold grouchy, hot grouchy, like being in the same room can be a lot.
yeah. There's like they're both like kind of like Saturn's kind of a little bit on a, yeah, just a little bit more negative, and then Mars is a little bit like negative, but like cutting off. Like you said, like hot and dry, a little bit hotter with that grouchy. Um,
I think of like
so yeah,
Mars
like
screaming in your face and Saturn just gives you the silent treatment.
mm,
And then like you put those two
yeah,
together, it's kind of like can be like the worst. Um, that's not very pleasant.
no, yeah, no, for real. It's like, yeah, no, yeah, I think that can be. I've kind of said
Like,
like, it also like Mars and Saturn. Like I think there's kind of like this unrequited love that sometimes they like bring to the table, where it's like Mars maybe really wants to, Mars is like trying to do the right thing, trying to kind of be a more disciplined, kind of be able to pass the tests of Saturn.
yeah.
And then Saturn can just be like a little bit disturbed by Mars in a way where Saturn's just like, yeah, I don't like you. You know what I mean? So that Mars can be like, I've done everything. It can bring kind of like that, yeah, that unrequited love. Like, how do you like, why don't you like me?
It
And
feels
then,
very like high school movie drama,
yeah,
right? Like the one
yeah,
character, I don't feel like there's maybe a dance off here somehow.
yeah, yeah. And then like at the end, Saturn's just like, no, you didn't do it right. You still didn't, you still, you flayed you did too much flair. You did too much like showmanship, or you showed off too much, Um, yeah. They're kind of,
I'm keeping us on track. Okay, so we have the list. So severing Mars qualities you mentioned can be have its good
can
quality,
be a good
severing
thing,
can be good. You can also
but
sever things you shouldn't sever.
exactly. That's when it comes out, when it's like maybe you should like severing something that's actually really good for you. It's like, wait, no, that good thing is good. It's not good to like separate from something that's actually really good. That can be kind of a bad quality. So like, severing and kind of that yeah, severing kind of in a good way, but severing also in a bad way. And then I think also with that, Mars can be a little bit of the lone wolf. There's a little bit
Mm,
of a good quality where Mars can do things on his own, be a little bit more tenacious, especially with, for instance, like we were kind of talking about with competition. Like competition is with people that are on the same level of you. It's kind of, your peers, siblings,
mm,
those that are at the same level of you. So Mars is like, that's Mars' domain, is being able to kind of deal with the competition. So in one way, it can be really good when it's like, okay, I can, like, for instance, I'll just kind of break down a little bit of the competition side. So on one side, it can be really awesome when someone is doing their best, when they're being their best self, when they're just bringing all of their greatest energy to the table. That can drive us to be inspired. That can drive us to kind of want to do better. And that kind of competition is really what we crave. That's what we want. We want to be inspired. We want to have that competition where it's like, no, you lift me up when and sometimes, maybe I'm trying to that's a lot of Mars is kind of the kind of boosting things, kind of inflating things. That kind of martial, like, let's go, we got this, let's step up.
The martial cheerleader.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no,
And
totally. Yeah.
And it's interesting because you said like Mars can also be a loner. I think of the two sides of that, of thinking, and maybe we should also draw this into the current transits because that would make sense. But thinking about Mars of like healthy competition, right? Like what is gained when this idea of that, like I was I'm not gonna get this quote right, but there's this, that book Stand Talk, and I can't remember the author right now. Anyway, it's this idea, I'm just gonna rip from it, that like fighting, like public fighting is actually a good thing, because it's like cultures that fight publicly are healthier because they get it out. Like there's that sort of catharsis Mars. Whereas it's what's more dangerous is people who are fighting behind closed doors. Think domestic violence, right? And so thinking about how do we, as a culture, that sort of competitiveness is that healthy Mars. And then the other side I'm thinking, as you're saying that, is thinking about like the lone wolf, right? And I automatically was thinking about how Mars in the ninth is this sort of sign of the heretic, right?
Oh yeah.
Which also is interesting, can be good, but also can be isolating. So maybe both the Mars in groups, there's a healthy version, Mars alone, there's a healthy version, but we could see the sort of difficult dynamics of either of those things.
Yeah, no, I love how you said that too. It's like, Mars can kind of deal with a lot of crossing that divide almost. I love Vic Takara. He's a wonderful astrologer, and I really love his. He translates very good traditional texts. One of my favorite is Phala Deepika by Montresha, and the word Mangala can actually mean like an auspicious kind of reaching, kind of crossing the boundary, like a successful, like getting through something. I may not be describing it too well, maybe butchering the translation, but the idea is just like there's an obstacle and you cross it successfully. So, like you said, like with the lone wolf, like being able to bear that kind of sometimes, having to go on your own road, having to figure things out yourself and being able to cross that divide. It can be also like Mars can also deal with like entrepreneurship, starting your own business, all those things where you're really having, especially sales also, where you're having to kind of go out on your own, having to do it, having to kind of enter that divide where you have to bear something into existence. Mars can be actually really fortuitous for that, very good. So that's something I think we can put on the good side of being able to bear that, being able to kind of, I can do this. Like, for instance, like I think that what comes with that is Mars being like, that's my money. Give it to me now. I need, like, give me all your stuff. That's kind of a little bit of Mars, kind of like this, you think of like people that, I don't know, like tycoons, like business tycoons that are just like super invested in like being successful, and there's a lot of kind of lack of sympathy that goes with that. There's kind of this lack of like feeling, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're saying that. I was thinking, I was like, the two types of like Mars, like give me my money. It's like the gun to your head, which feels very Aries, give me your money. And then the more like gangster, what was it? The oh God, what was the head that ends up in the bed? What that famous scene from The Godfather?
Yes. Yeah, the horse. Yeah. Like I think it was
Horse.
the
Is it
horse.
a
I
horse?
don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember.
You know
It's
where
been
I'm
a while.
going with this though, right? Like that feels very Mars and
Oh yeah.
Scorpio.
Yeah.
Like
No, for
right?
me.
The two different ways that Mars gets your money.
Yeah, like intimidation, like definitely is one of those things where it's like Mars is kind of auspicious towards that, kind of like um, there's certain idea of like Mars wanting to, Mars being a little bit preoccupied, kind of not really, I wouldn't say necessarily numbness, but there can be this kind of like, that's mine, you know. My partner Hunter, he is this really funny meme. I can't remember exactly, but it's like, we made this, I made this. you know so yeah, Mars can definitely do that thing where Mars is like, this is mine now. Thank you for thank you for yeah.
And it's interesting. I was
um,
thinking about a case of remediation where I was thinking about someone, a friend of mine, who was having some Mars issues. Maybe I'll bring this up as a way of talking about your consultations and remediation.
oh
But
yeah.
this person, I believe, I can't remember where their natal Mars is. This feels very Mars and Libra, the problem to me, and I can't remember. But
Mhm.
they were having problems Marsing. They needed to confront somebody with some difficult things. And it wasn't bad. It's just, like Mars is also the strength that gives us sorry.
Yeah.
Mars can also be our ability to protect ourselves, to stand up for ourselves, right? Not necessarily in a violent or aggressive way, but maybe in a very calm, straightforward way, right? Like, I need to address this thing. And they were traditionally have problems Marsing. And I was thinking about ways that they could maybe do some Mars remediation to sort of tap into that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no,
Um,
that's a really good point. Yeah, because like
is that something you see in your clients, like all with
oh
these
yeah.
Mars readings?
Yeah, like for instance, I think sometimes like uh I guess not antipathy, I don't know, the antithesis, yeah,
Yeah.
antithesis of like Mars maybe would be a little bit of some people pleasing, kind of engaging in this like a little bit of, well, I don't want to make you mad, well, I don't want to, let me just do this for you, or let me just kind of hide away, let me just kind of not do that. I mean, not, I'm not going to bring this up, I don't want to rock the boat.
Uh-huh,
um
uh-huh. Very Mars and
yeah,
Libra.
and
Right.
in a lot of ways, like that kind of that people pleasing can actually destroy some of the intimacy. It can kind of destroy a little bit of the
Mm,
trust that we have. And so there could be this need to kind of rectify that through doing simple and small things, like, especially with Mars remediation. Like, it's important to kind of start small before you get to the big stuff. Kind of like sometimes we find ourselves down and out, we find ourselves a little bit hung out, we kind of find ourselves a little burned out. And so the way we get out of that is kind of, okay, what can I do for myself right now that will take care of my needs? Because a lot of Mars is like recognizing your own needs, kind of saying, okay, this is my need that I need to take care of. This isn't up
mhm,
to someone else that I need to people please in order to get this way or that way. I need to recognize my own needs in this situation. I need to be a little bit more personal. Um, in a lot of ways, like Mars can deal with the ego, but not in a bad way necessarily. I think that it's important to kind of flex that muscle, to kind of be like, hey, this
yeah,
is me. I'm pretty great. Like, I am pretty great. Like, even sometimes, if we don't like necessarily believe that, it's important to kind of just recognize certain things, to have pride in ourselves, to kind of say, like for instance, like with Mars, like one of those things that I think is really prominent with Mars is like with Martial problems is kind of self-pity, right? Is
mm,
having that bit of self-pity for ourselves. And in a way that can kind of accomplish the need for that self-love to take effect. Because when we're having that self-pity, it's like, oh, I feel like this is my best friend. I'm not good enough. It can feel like that's us. We can kind of
yeah,
identify that self-pity as kind of being us. And in reality, that's the self pity is not our friend at all. It's something that it's a way. Self pity is a way we try to have self love for ourselves, but we sometimes are not sure how to do that, right? And so a lot of the times, like, and I think it's important to bear in mind that actually the moon is very good to go through for help with remediation with Mars.
mm,
Almost like burn, like inflammation, kind of having that balm to kind of say, no, this is fine. I'm not, I may feel burned in a way, but I'll heal. I don't need to, I can pick myself up. I can defend myself. Maybe I got a battle scar, but that battle scar means I fought, means I did something. And, just having that ability to kind of soothe those things. So yeah, with the
Mm.
self-pity also, I think we can get out of that through gratitude a lot of the times, through having that gratitude for, hey, I can be proud of myself. Hey, I've done this. This was really awesome. Kind of just recognizing our personal kind of own things that we've gone through and kind of saying, no, 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 that's a story that I was maybe telling about myself that just doesn't actually apply to me. That's something that I was kind of involved with that, I need to see my own POV, because Mars really wants us to be integrated into our own POV. And I think that's why sometimes really powerful Mars can be like, no, that's mine, give me it, because it's so focused. It's so like inward. It's so like me directed, and
It's interesting thinking about that for a moment. There's two ways. One, have you heard Kristen Mathis's work on the moon and Mars about like
um,
moon being the nanny of Mars? This is really
oh,
interesting.
that's interesting. Yeah. No,
Like,
actually, I haven't, I need to go through her. Has she done Mars? Has she
I know
done the
she's,
Orphic
I don't know if I
Mars?
haven't kept up with like the Orphic hand, but I know that she's done a lot of work. The Mars moon thing is really interesting because she makes the case that I'm gonna say they have this really unique relationship and why they actually get along, and this idea that the moon kind of keeps Mars in check, right? Like this idea
Yeah.
that like Mars and anyways, it's brilliant. But thinking about that when you were talking, I just had this moment and I was thinking like what is self-pity, right? And it's interesting because self-pity is like negative self it's negative self-talk, correct? Because if you think if you're pitying yourself, you're still carrying, I want to say like a sort of negative image, and it does feel um I'm not really going anywhere with this. I'm just trying to hold in my head like what actual self-pity is. That's interesting. It's almost like you don't know. Self-pity is feels like broken Mars,
Yeah.
if
It
that
feels
makes
like
sense.
there's like some shame. Yeah, there's like some shame
Shame,
there.
like, I'm really trying to explore what that
Yeah.
is, and, so you mentioned self-pity, but is this something you see in clients? Like, I know we're talking about these, like, broad sweeping things, but maybe give me an example of something you might see in a client and, like, actually, when you work with clients, are you giving them, like, talismanic remediation? Are you giving them, like, doing charity? Like, what kind of things are you offering
Yeah.
to clients in some of the more
Oh yeah.
tangible ways so people watching this can get some idea?
Yeah. No, for sure. So one of those ways is, like you said, kind of there is planetary charity, which I think is very important. There's different ways that we
Mhm.
can kind of interact with planetary charity. Like for
Yeah.
instance, I think one of the most important things with like planetary charity is like, well, like we'll number one, maybe before we do that, we'll have a little bit of like a Mars ritual where we'll kind of pray to Mars. We'll kind of have a Mars altar. Maybe we'll put some like red flowers in that vase, or whatever. We'll put some Mars incense there. We'll put a red candle there. We'll do all that stuff. That can be very good for Mars remediation also, especially working with Mars on Tuesdays, kind of checking in on Mars, because that's
Mm.
important to do. It's like sometimes we kind of forget to kind of look at Mars. We kind of, well, we want to play with this side of our chart. We want to play with that side of our chart, and that's fine. It's totally fine to focus on those areas where you are succeeding, where you do have that success. But it can be very important to kind of, okay, how is Mars doing today? Let's kind of check in on Mars. Let's open the Mars story. Oh my God, Mars is Mars is not doing well. We need to interact with them. And the ways we do that is kind of like the planetary charity. So we do that ritual, and then maybe we have some Mars flowers. Maybe we have like some coffee. I don't know. Maybe not just coffee though. I think like stuff that gives you energy. That can be very martial. That kind of gives you that
Oh,
go.
do you think so you put coffee could coffee be Mars and Saturn?
Um, yeah, I was thinking also Mercury, also because like
Yeah.
stimulating your brain, like
Yeah, okay,
stimulation.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, totally. It could because it's
I don't know. I was thinking, you're right. That makes more sense. I was just thinking the bitterness.
Oh yeah, no, that's for sure. Like, there's definitely some. I think there's definitely some things with Mars. Like, for instance, giving coffee to like your ancestors can actually be very good, especially if it's a drink that they enjoyed. And it can be actually very good, stimulating for them as well. So it can kind of a little bit. And I think Saturn and Mercury actually go pretty well together as well. So there's a little bit of they chatter pretty well. But yeah,
But in
like
this case,
different.
the coffee is for Mars for energy.
Yeah, yeah, you can kind of yeah, you could use like a Red Bull. You could do I don't know. You could do like a caffeine shot. You could go through like the drive-through of like some coffee place and be like, give me like give me four shots of espresso. I don't know, some coffee. I don't really necessarily drink coffee.
Because you
I like,
grew up without coffee.
yeah, yeah. I've tried to like get a habit of it, but it just has never stick. I've just been like, me, I don't want this. I like soda. Actually, been trying to drink more of like Sprite. But anyways, yeah, you could. There's different like stimulating drinks.
Why more Sprite? I love. Sorry, this is a total side note, and I'm totally okay with it.
Oh
Because
yeah, no,
you grew
totally.
up Mormon, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
And so there was no coffee, but there was a lot of like coffee workarounds.
Oh yeah. Sugar being one of those. Yeah, definitely. Like you go to the I can't even remember a soda shop. There's lots of soda shops that have different names in Utah, but usually I just like to go to the gas station where you can get like some. They have like actually really nice like soda stands there. Like you have different ice, like you have pebble ice, you have regular ice. I think there's a different kind of ice, but you get the pebble ice. You get your styrofoam cup that has, it's kind of nice. It kind of insulates. Um, and
I
then
didn't know. This is fascinating. Sorry, I'm really loving this detour. Okay, so there
oh,
in
it's
Utah there are these soda shops with elevated ice, insulate. Not so good for the environment, but good for the
no,
beverage. So
no, yeah, not at all. Yeah, uh, yeah, like you get your like flavor shots. You get like I want some vanilla. I want some like lemon drops. I want some, various things. Uh, yeah, no, it's one of those things that I kind of miss in a way because it was one of those like especially at the gas stations, like the gas stations here, more typically they'll just have like a Coke machine and that's it, or something, or like maybe a Pepsi machine, and like the Pepsi machine is like not really properly mixed right, so you're not. I don't know. That was one of my favorite things living there was like going to the gas station and getting like fountain drinks are like my favorite. They are my favorite. I love a fountain drink. But
and
yeah,
what is it
like
about Sprite that you're calling in right now? I'm sorry. This
I
is
don't know. I wanted I've stopped like drinking like because Pepsi was my like normal one was like the one that I would go to a lot, but it's kind of bad for your teeth. It's like it's those like dark sodas or they kind of stain your teeth. They can kind of be bad for cavities as well. Not that like Sprite is any really better, but just kind of like it really isn't. Like it's kind of like okay, it's like this a little bit. It's like okay, we're still drinking a lot of sugar though. Uh, I don't know. Yeah, we gotta enjoy ourselves. I think. But yeah, uh, yeah, whatever kind of stimulating drink you have, sometimes I think honestly it can be better to not be. Or actually, what I also use for Mars offerings is beer, like just like a regular old like like a Bud Light. You know what I mean? Like I'll go get a Bud
yeah.
Light and I'll be like, here you go, Mars. Here's a beer. you know, uh, like that kind of idea. That old, I guess that stereotype. Like having a brewski, with the with the boys. I love that. With a good old Mars boy. Yeah.
There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah, I love giving that to Mars. Yeah, so like, sometimes you'll get the. I won't necessarily like take some of those offerings, the drinks, maybe out to people, but like what you could do is you could actually present like some of those offerings to maybe martial children. Like you could go to the gym and be like, hey, here's a bouquet of red flowers I got that I just wanted to, have for, thank you for providing this like gym service. Kind of that idea that it's not, you're not keeping that like positive energy with you. You want to disperse it out. You want to like give it back to the Mars children. You want to kind of say, hey, here's, here you go. Here's thank you, Mars. And I love your children. They're awesome.
Can we pause for a moment here? I'm just this. Okay, so I'm like, okay, red flowers, red carnations, red roses, right? We're already getting into Venus Mars territory, which is, I think we're calling in today.
Yes.
So you're thinking, I really need to like remediate my Mars. I really need to get in touch with my Mars. So I'm going to take a bouquet of roses, carnations, maybe red tulips, maybe combination of both, and I'm going to present them to the owner or a manager of my gym. I feel like in some instance,
I mean, there are some instances where it's like that can
that
totally
feels like you
be,
might get some. You could either go really well, you might get some conflict. In that case, if it's like you get conflict,
yeah,
depending on where you live in the country, you may need to figure out how to get to some Mars protective action really quick.
yeah, no, that's true. Sometimes that may not be the best idea. So here's like another version of that you could do is like simply like one thing that I like to do is like at the gym, like I'll just kind of like especially with the Mars children, that's kind of like wherever you can find the healthiest, because you want to find the safe Mars children. You don't want to just like kind of go outside and be like, oh hey random Mars person, random child of
Lifting
Mars,
weights in
take
the park.
this. Yeah, like yeah, like some guy just like smoking out, just like just just like sucking down a smoke. You know what I mean? You may not want to like engage with some of the Mars children. You want to kind of be a little bit careful because that's important. That's something that you want to go to the safe Mars children. You want to go to the Mars children that will see you, because not all are the same. It's important to clarify that because sometimes simply just like for instance like at the gym like it can be very like I don't know, I always wear my cap. It has the rainbow flag on it, so it's like people in my area, they're not, I live in kind of a small town. We're actually moving right now. We may move we're kind of thinking of actually moving down to like the Los Angeles area. My sister lives there and stuff, and it'd actually be pretty good. I actually really like that area. It's pretty awesome.
Okay.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. So with that, like
At the gym, rainbow flag, so people know.
yeah, oh yeah, because it's like I don't that's something that I enjoy expressing. That like that's something that is
Yeah.
very powerful, and I think that being able to express that part of yourself is very important. It's very important to be yourself and not be, there's some times where at the gym like there's just going to be people that are not going to be necessarily safe in those instances. Like not going to get into a story about that, but just being kind of a little bit selective. And that's something that I think Mars wants you to do is kind of stand up for your values, have the courage to be, hey, this is me. There's certain ways that we can go about doing that that can be a lot safer for us. But I also want to recognize, I am a white male. So like, I may be able to get away with that more. So I don't want to like advertise to everyone to just kind of, it can be very important, that gradual step, kind of that gradual ability through being able to express yourself, especially if you live in like an area that's not accepting to that. But still kind of finding that avenue where maybe you do talk to someone that is safe and you're able to express that part of yourself. And oftentimes, like there's been times where, I have kind of said, oh yeah, I'm a gay man. Yeah, no. And then people just kind of avoid me after that. And that's important to kind of take note of, because you don't like, that's kind of something that's giving you a little bit of an instance of their own Marshall story. Because I think Mars can also like when we have a little bit of a difficult Mars, sometimes that can make us be insecure. And so sometimes just not recognizing the world around us. We kind of, maybe think, oh, there's, we get kind of make weird conclusions about these things. And certain people can kind of make weird conclusions about, people that are minorities, and so that can be an instance of someone maybe not understanding their own Mars story, kind of not understanding really how Mars takes effect, and kind of using that use of Mars as a blanket to mask their insecurities. You know what I mean? Like, so it's important to kind of recognize that, to not be integrated into their Martial story, but be very secure with your own, to be very integrated into your own, and not worry about the people that just, don't talk to you, or, you kind of maybe talk to them once or twice, and then all of a sudden they figure out you're gay, or, they figure something out about you, and then they're like, oh God, that's important for you to kind of take information and to kind of recognize and say, okay, this person is maybe someone I don't want to, I don't want to engage with as much. I need to kind of have that boundary for myself, to kind of protect myself, not to just like send out the Mars signal when I want to just talk to anyone, any of Mars children.
If what you're saying, I love that idea of don't get wrapped up in their Mars story. I was thinking, we've all known people like this who feel like all this feels very Leo to me, although I know
it is. No, for sure.
I know that the sun rules Leo, but you mentioned these sort of tie up of ego and Mars, but like those people that are really aggro, just like angry, and you realize it's because they're so insecure, and that's the only, like, going from the other spectrum, right? Like going to the other end of it. And so I love that idea of don't get caught up in someone else's Mars story.
Yeah, because it's like some people will, Mars is kind of they'll be insecure, and so they'll try to make you the bad guy. They'll try to make you the bad person in some way. They'll try to say, oh, this is someone I need to direct this splitting off from. You know what I mean? Like, they'll kind of direct that towards you, when that's just not at all. They're just kind of, they're just kind of insecure, and they don't know how to deal with that. They're kind of a little bit in their own, like, because I think with Mars, like, there's a really important thing to kind of recognize, that Mars can kind of be the lone wolf and kind of get lost in certain things. Kind of, there's some kind of things, some tests of Mars that, especially with the patriarchy, it's important to point that out, that it's like, this is the only way to express masculinity. And it's like, no, that's not. Honestly, I think like the highest form of masculinity, like I was talking to one of my friends, and like he was talking about another guy friend that he met online. They're both straight, and how the first time that they met each other, they just like kissed each other on the cheek. They were just so excited to like meet each other. And I honestly think that like that's one of the highest expressions of masculinity, is just being excited and feeling free and kind of being giddy. It's like, and enjoying things. It's like expressing your desires and being and enjoying that, not being so caught up in how you look all the time, not being so worried about how this person takes it, how that person takes it, but just being very raw and very kind of I wouldn't say unpolished, but undecorated about it. Just being like, oh, this is how I feel. Ah, being that directness, that kind of
Yeah.
forward, that kind of truth that is a little bit different from, like, Victor Carr kind of talks about this. Like, it's a little bit different than like a Jupiter truth. Jupiter truth is a little bit more clarified. It's a little bit more it takes a little bit from wisdom, where Mars's truth is a lot more not unpolished, but yeah, just undecorated. It's just, hey, this is how I feel. Hey, this is, just being really direct, just being very honest up front. Yeah, and so I'll just kind of finish that, a little bit of that remediation with kind of working with Mars children. It's kind of like Mars's children, interacting with them, and introducing yourself, talking to them, building them up. At the gym, I think, especially if like you do sports or anything like that, or even just are in kind of like, let's say, like competition, like a video game, because that can also be a little bit martial, that competition. So you can kind of just boost people up and be like, hey, you did really good. Like, I was really impressed by, wow, you're looking really strong. This, just kind of being able to just say that, just being able to boost people up. Not necessarily doing it to kind of get your own boost back, but just being like, no, you're great too. I don't need to always be the center of attention. I like to boost. I like to inflate. I like to, do that, and be able to just recognize that. Because when I do that, it makes me feel good, because I can recognize someone else's trait, someone else's strength, And then that makes me feel stronger in turn, because I'm wanting to get to that level. I'm wanting to reach a little bit higher state, trying to shape up, or not shape up, but level up, let's say. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So one of the simple ways, if I'm distilling this correctly, I think most people who have like most people who think they have trouble Marsing usually aren't aggressively Marsing. It's like the other way, right? Where maybe they don't know how to, get that enthusiasm or excitement, or maybe stick up for themselves in certain ways. And so one of the simple ways is find the children of Mars and
Yeah.
interact with them. Right. Like I
Yeah.
love this idea of just going to the gym and maybe getting a strength training class you like a lot, where they're, kind, accepting people, and learning, observing. And you could do this with any planet, I'm sure, right? This is what it means to encounter the children of, but observe what it means to marshal in its best ways, and just push yourself to participate. Am I hearing that
Yeah.
correctly?
Oh
I
yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
Because Mars really wants you to be present, wants you to kind of face your fears, and kind of recognize, hey, maybe some of these fears I can deal with it. It's not that, it's not as much as I was making in my head. I was a little bit, um, I just needed to kind of be honest and and confront this head on. And when I did that, when I wasn't kind of using a fear to kind of start the situation, or I wasn't using some sort of, um, yeah, because I think that kind of fear, can also lead to a little bit of anxiety. And so we'll kind of think, oh, well, they're going to take me like this. They're going to take me like this. And sometimes it's like when you just face those people and you're just like, hey, yeah, this is me. And by the way, I really don't appreciate this. Or, it doesn't have to be so cheery like that. I don't want to make it like that. But just being very honest and being very direct and not being integrated in, I think sometimes actually it can help to just, uh, I don't want to say this as a broad statement, but
Yeah.
kind of sometimes we do need to maybe have not as much sympathy for others, and kind of that can be a little bit of what's going on, is that we're not having sympathy for ourselves. So it's we kind of need to have that sympathy, and not and recognize, hey, no, I am pretty good. I'm just kind of being a little bit subjective about this, because I think that Scorpio energy can, there is kind of this subjectivity that we can get into,
Yeah.
of this could happen, that could happen, but facing it head on is sometimes what helps us best. Yeah.
It's interesting. Thinking about this idea of, you mentioned at the beginning, boundaries. We would think of Saturn as boundaries, like Saturn creating containers, right? But I was thinking maybe some of the beauty in Mars medicine, since we're using this sort of sports gym analogy, which I know nothing about sports, although I do love to exercise, is that maybe to some extent, right? Healthy competition is admitting, yes, there are winners and losers, right? I don't mean in a overall way, but there are going to be situations where it's a hard no, right? No, I do
Mhm.
not want this, right? That feels right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're in a friendship that needs to end, and that person might feel like the loser. I mean, not that this is probably a really bad analogy, but right, there is Mars doesn't. It's that understanding of, there are going to be moments where, no, not everyone is going to leave this feeling good. And I feel like
Yeah.
sports are maybe a great cathartic way of practicing that.
No, totally. Yeah, totally. Because it's important to kind of recognize that. It's important for Mars to say, okay, there is going to be someone better than me. There is going to be someone that, there's kind of going to be that exchange sometimes with Mars of, this person gets out better, that person gets out worse. And that's not always a bad thing. We can kind of recognize that. Sometimes we'll do that self-pity, and I think that's kind of where it kicks in, is we'll kind of someone, we go out to fist bump someone, and someone's walks away from us, and we're like, oh, cringe, and in reality it's hey, no, hey, who cares? It's not that deep, it's not, and we just have to kind of get to that level where it's hey, it's just not that deep. It is what it is. It's
Uh,
important to kind of recognize, yeah.
yeah, I just want to say, having been on the other side of that fist bump, I would have never thought that. I feel like usually the people who are trying to fist bump me are so confident. I would never thought, like, you just gave me a new perspective, because usually people are trying to fist bump me and I'm really confused. I don't know what to do. There's a lot of rings. It feels dangerous.
Yeah, you're like, what?
But yeah, and but nice to know the other end. Maybe they're not showing it, but there could be some depletion there. Yeah. But I was thinking, when you're talking like the winners and losers of, like, like I'm just thinking of like someone who's having a hard time letting someone down, right? And in that case, it's like maybe Mars is the strength to say, yeah, we're going to make this person feel bad, but that's kind of not our business in this moment in time. Like, I don't have any control over that. And sometimes Mars is having to like own that difficulty.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example of it, of like kind of recognizing, okay, this isn't really my business. This doesn't like apply to me. This sometimes we don't realize that we're taking like information in as some sort of like scorecard, some of the numbers game that we do. And we kind of have to set that aside and say, wait, this has nothing to do with me at all. This is maybe something that is just outside of my control, kind of recognizing that own personal space, that own kind of like, this is my life. I have my own strength and I can do good things with it, but my strength is not, I can't like overwhelm I can't like, I don't know, Hulk out and then get some end result that I want. I need to kind of recognize that that's just, that can be a little bit of kind of the optics game, where we're kind of like trying to like prove ourselves, and in those moments, it's like, this is not the place to prove yourself. This is the place to just be yourself, to accept that, and use that rejection as just, it's kind of like that healthy. I think that's actually a healthy kind of that's a healthy kind of influence for Mars to get used to, is like getting rejected. Is being able to say, yeah, I got rejected, and so I kept going, and I didn't give up, and I let it go. That can actually be very like good for Mars, to kind of recognize, this isn't a battle that I need to engage in. This isn't a battle even at all. We're not like, really kind of being a little bit more objective with it and saying, wait, why am I reacting like this? Because this win or lose, like, I'm not thinking right. I'm a little bit invested in a way that is making me kind of act in a way that's not very my own character.
Yeah. Final. Okay, we're rounding the hour. Do you want to play a quick game?
Oh yeah. We didn't really talk about the Mars and Venus. I guess I'll say a little bit about.
Say a little bit about that, and then let's play a quick game. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I want to play that game. That'd be fun. So like Mars and Venus, they're conjunct in Aquarius right now. They conjoined at 6 degrees, and it's really interesting because Mars is going to retrograde at exactly 6 degrees of Leo. So I think we're going to see a lot of these other themes that we've kind of been, maybe the sowing of that Venus-Mars cycle that kind of started. We're going to see some of those fruits blossom in some ways, and kind of how Mars is kind of maybe understanding that kind of martial story, especially with Venus, because they're very much counterparts. Also they're squaring Jupiter. So I think also with the square where Mars is overcoming Jupiter, it actually tends to not play out as well for Mars with Jupiter. I think it's actually a lot better. Oh fuck, I can't remember who says this. A traditional astrologer. I can't remember his name right now. 4th century.
Mars and Aquarius is overcoming square to Jupiter and Taurus.
Yeah, and especially with like Venus there, I think there can be this kind of quality of like, Venus is maybe recognizing the consensus, being a little bit more ingrained to that. There can kind of be this almost like bad guy energy with Mars kind of squaring Jupiter as well as being with Venus. And so it's kind of like recognizing a little bit of, okay, where is this kind of problem? Where is this kind of issue with relationships? Where is this kind of issue of how we, especially with Jupiter, how we use our morality to kind of understand the broader system, the broader ecosystem of Aquarius, the broader ecosystem of the world. How do we, integrate with communities? How are we recognizing how we're integrating? And, just kind of, especially with Mars, like overcoming Jupiter, I think that can play out as like, Mars wanting to kind of, well, let's go, Jupiter. And then Jupiter's like, wait, hold on. You're kind of, you know, like I said to you before, you're kind of brandishing knives here, Mars. And like, first of all, you got Venus there. You need to kind of have a little bit more boundaries with that. You need to have a little bit more carefulness with that, especially because I think Venus and Jupiter can kind of also deal with relationships, how we trust others in relationships, that kind of, how do we form relationships? Jupiter and Venus, I think, especially kind of can be a little bit like sometimes that intimacy also, especially with like affairs that we get into with people, like different relationships, different ways that we go about engaging in that fun and pleasure. I think it'll be interesting to kind of watch that, to kind of notice this and to kind of think about it, especially when we get to that Mars retrograde on December 6th. It'll be pretty important to play out, pretty important how it plays out, as well as with like Pluto there. There's kind of a lot of things going on right now. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. So thinking right now, whatever story is happening, remember that Mars 6 when we have the Leo. Oh, that's Mars and Leo retrograde. In general, like, I love that we're on this topic. I mean, how would for like, I feel like everyone, I'm trying, just the Mars Venus piece this week. How would you describe it if people are listening to this live and they're like, yeah, it has felt kind of crunchy? What are some ways you could think to work with Mars and Venus?
Oh yeah, no, totally. Mars and Venus, I think they can do a lot of flavor, kind of take the flavor of kind of the culture that we're trying to create, the culture that we're trying to cultivate, especially like Mars is kind of sowing the seeds. And, Venus is kind of helping those blossom. And then Mars is maybe kind of tending, kind of protecting the outside atmosphere, kind of, oh, it's too hot and dry. We got to give some rain. We got to give some moisture here. Kind of being able to kind of, okay, this is how we solve it. This is how we're going to solve the problem. We're going to chop wood to, if it's too wet or something. I don't know. I don't think you'd actually do this with plants. I'm not like no, I don't grow plants.
Farmer.
But just kind of breaking things down in order to make it easier for Venus to kind of be a little bit more intimate with that process, and kind of, especially with Venus kind of tasting that culture, kind of giving that, Mars is kind of like, okay, am I doing everything right? And Venus is like, well, I'm tasting this, this tastes kind of good, but you know what we need? And then Mars is like, let's do it. And then Mars, goes to get things to kind of help Venus kind of do that, and kind of goes around. So there can be kind of a good story, I think, here. The two are like very powerful. It's like a magnet that kind of draws people inward. A lot of gravitas, a lot of kind of intrigue, especially Mars is kind of counterculture, and Venus is wanting to work with the consensus. So there's, I think, some way of like redefining that, kind of saying, okay, actually maybe Venus is saying, actually I like this. I used to not think that was good, but you know what? I can see there is some value, but we need a little bit more discrimination, because Venus is very receptive. Venus holds a lot of wisdom as well. Venus is very good at learning, very good at figuring things out, very good at sensing things, kind of the sensuality that you need to kind of allow Mars to introduce that, like kind of like, let's do this, let's kind of enjoy this, that kind of spark that gets the fire going, that kind of spark that starts a little bit of I think that Mars is kind of more starting that kind of I guess that's sex, you know what I mean? So
it's a very sexy transit.
Yeah, no, it's sexy as hell.
I don't know why. I was just thinking of like Mars, Venus in Aquarius. My first thought was like robot sex. I mean, I know that like, intellectually we can have sex too, and that's not an exclusive, but I did have that just sort of vision of, I wonder if there's been any like robot sex headlines in the news.
Oh yeah, no, and that's something. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like I've heard of like AI boyfriends, AI girlfriends as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, to me it's kind of like a nudist kind of like let's the audience kind of wanting to do what the what the stage is doing. Kind of like, you know what? They're having all the fun. Why don't we? let's take off our clothes and let's do this.
I just had a vision of like some sort of like game show, like where like it's re- just some sort of game show, like where you're winning. I'm just totally making this in my head, like The Price is Right or something, where it's like some sort of bet is revealed, and it's like these two people, and then just sort of the orgy ensues.
Yes.
Orgy at The Price is Right. This is not making any logical
Yeah.
sense, but that was the vision that came to me.
No, totally. And then like the audience is like, they're having too much fun. Let's do this. Let's fucking go. Yeah, I love that.
Now that I've gotten you worked up with the
We love it. We
let's
love it.
end my game. Okay, are you ready for this?
Let's do
Now
it.
this game's funny because hopefully I can get my zodiac right. I'm gonna say Mars in a sign. Okay, I'm gonna say a sign, right? So the idea is Mars in blank sign. And
Oh
like
yeah.
first thing that comes to you, just like first thing, you're gonna have
Okay.
to give me a word. Okay.
Okay.
Are you up for this
Okay.
game?
Oh yeah, let's
And
do
the
it. I'm
second part of this
ready.
game
I'm
is like
down.
me seeing if I can actually memorize the zodiac. This could be challenging. Okay. Are you ready?
Let's do this. I'm
Okay,
nervous, but
first
let's
thing,
do
there's
this.
no right.
We got this.
Mars and Aries.
Gladiator sex.
Okay, 2 words. Good. We're going for 2 words going forward. I love this. Gladiator sex, Mars and Aries, great. Mars and Taurus.
Taurus. Minotaur. Honestly, I just keep adding sex to everything.
Go for it. This is the game. Add sex to everything. Say it out loud.
Minotaur. Yeah, Minotaur sex. There we go.
Nice. Minotaur sex. Okay, perfect. Okay, so Mars and Gemini.
Oh God. Oh God.
Oh God, it's 2 words.
Okay. The first thing, 2 things are coming to my mind are not.
Go for it. What are they?
Okay, well, I mean twins. Like I think of Gemini as twins. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna. I'm not gonna say the next thing, but okay. Next one.
Okay, so
Twin
twin sex? Something about twins?
Castor and Pollux. Let's go with that. Castor and Pollux, they're lovers. Okay, let's do that. They're not related. So there we go. We got it.
There we go.
We got it.
Castor
Save
and Pollux
myself.
sex. Good. But they are related. Okay, but anyway, that's fine. Cancer. Oh God, where are we going with this? Cancer. Mars and
Werewolf.
Cancer.
Werewolf.
Werewolf.
Werewolf and werewolf that it's a reverse werewolf.
Reverse werewolf. You get 2 words.
There we go.
Reverse werewolf. Mars and Cancer. Wow. Okay. Mars and Leo.
Mars and Leo. Royalty. Naked royalty.
Naked royalty. Done. Nice. Mars and Virgo.
Mars and Virgo. Nerds. Horny nerds.
Horny nerds. Mars and Libra.
Naked ballroom party. Yeah.
Naked ballroom party.
Yes.
Okay. Mars and Scorpio.
Mars and Scorpio. Oh. Secret brotherhood. I don't know. Secret.
Oh, no, that's great. Secret brotherhood. Mars and Scorpio. Secret brotherhood. Mars and Sagittarius.
Horny teacher.
Ooh, okay. Mars and Capricorn.
Oh, horny soldier. There we go. Naked soldier.
Naked soldier. Got demoted there. Mars Aquarius, current placement.
Oh, aliens. Like, have you seen some of the Babylonian statues where they got really big dongs? Big dong aliens. Let's go.
Big dong aliens. Great. Mars and Aquarius. No. Mars and Pisces. Last one.
Mars and Pisces. Horny priest. Hot priest. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. I'm thinking of that Magic Mike number 2. I can't remember his name, but he's really hot. He's the priest. He is the horny priest, and we love him. I can't remember his name. Yeah.
This was worth it. This was everything.
I love that.
I love this so much. It's my new favorite game. Big strong aliens.
Someone's asking for it. Someone probably. Who knows?
I feel like somewhere. Oh, you know that there's like some amazing zodiac porn.
Oh yeah, there's Mormon porn, so there's got to be. I mean,
I just think that's what we just the collection of we just went through. Which...
Yes. So if you want to make these ideas real, remember where you got them first, okay?
we are for. I'm now saying we. I'm like, I'm a copywriter. We're for hire.
We have copyrighted these ideas, by the way. They're already copywritten. We
can write scripts. It's great.
We're using, yes, writing scripts. Hell yeah. Now I'm just thinking of like asking ChatGPT to like write a script of like and like reading it like how they do the TikToks where it's like, I asked ChatGPT to do something and this is what it was.
Oh my god, this idea is born. This is brilliant. I'm gonna go back.
Yeah.
Speaking of martial activities, I'm gonna go ride my Peloton.
Hell yeah. No, this has been wonderful.
Yeah, okay, last thing. Hold on. As I say this, I've been waiting to thank you. Look what came in the mail. Sorry, this is my plug for you. I'm unboxing. That's what we're doing. Before I go to the Peloton, this is my Saturn talisman. Do you want to tell the people about this while I'm unboxing?
Oh yeah. So Saturn talismans, I really love them. They're very excellent for I think honestly, like they're very authentic. Like that's one thing that I love about Saturn talismans is that it can help you engage with that authenticity. Saturn is kind of there's almost like this difficulty, I think. Saturn and Mars, I think, they're the malefics that sometimes don't get enough attention. And in a lot of ways, like Marsilio Ficino talks about, there's really good ways to work with Saturn. One of the ways he kind of says those that are highly favored by Saturn are fortunately favored in their lives. And I think that one thing that I really love that he also says is when we deal with our ordinary emotions, we can kind of break through to community. And that's something that I think Saturn's really big about. Saturn's kind of anti-establishment, kind of anti-class systems in a lot of ways. Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
We had too much Mars here. We had to bring it down.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely did. We definitely did.
Oh my god, so gorgeous. Okay.
Yeah, and that's something that I really love about those Saturn talismans is it was a Venus combination with Saturn, especially with the moon in Libra, having an aspect between those two planets, Venus and Saturn, carrying the light and bearing it to Saturn. So I think it's very good for kind of getting through, kind of breaking through those ordinary emotions, kind of recognizing, okay, this is a little bit of, maybe I feel like this way, maybe I feel a little bit shy, maybe I feel like community is something that I can't really integrate myself with, but it's kind of breaking down a little bit more of those boundaries and kind of getting through to say, okay, where is community for me? Where can I meet with community? How can I integrate myself with that? There's lots of lovely other things that I really like with Saturn talismans. Like whenever I wear them, it can just be like I'm just being very real, being very honest, being very integrated into my own authenticity. And I think that that's something that it's really nice. It's really nice to kind of not be so, uh, excuse me. Saturn especially is kind of one of those planets that is not couth at all. There is no couthness with Saturn. Saturn's there's a little bit of awkwardness, but that awkwardness is kind of, honestly, it can be refreshing. It kind of can be that way that we kind of break through those kind of a little bit of those sometimes those self-seen boundaries that we kind of place ourselves in, kind of recognizing, this isn't something that is necessarily awkward. This is more normal. This is just authentic. And the way that we can kind of accept that is through integrating ourselves with community, setting aside our ordinary emotions, and kind of that's one thing that I love about Marcelo Ficino, that he says is kind of setting aside those ordinary emotions, kind of recognizing, okay, this is a little bit more ordinary than I think it was, and it's not as bad. It can also be a little bit of a protection for you, a little bit of kind of this your own setting of the boundaries and kind of recognizing those for yourself. I don't know if I did the best job saying that. Go read about them on my
No,
website.
this is
I've been
beautiful. So this is all to say, I love this. We brought it down to Saturn.
Yeah.
But Astrological Masonry, people can find you on IG, on YouTube. But we just mentioned, that was one of your Saturn talismans. So you make Saturn talismans, Saturn talismanic materia. You sell them. You make some of my favorite ones. How can people find you? All the things.
All right, so Astrological Masonry on .com is my website. So go there, read about these Saturn talismans, discover if they're right for you. Especially with that Venus combination, I think there's a little bit more of an easier flow with that. There's a little bit of a more relaxing charm. Also something that it's just very real and practical, a very real and practical tool, kind of just confronting the objective truths that we need to acknowledge, okay, this is how we make our way forward. Someone else has done this, I can do it too. I don't need to kind of have these bells and whistles around me to make myself feel better about it. I can kind of just be real. I can kind of approach this with a little bit more sincerity. One thing with Saturn is, humility. But anyways, enough about Saturn talismans. My website's Astrological Masonry. Astrological Masonry is my Instagram handle. Also, I do some TikToks as well. Mason the Heretic on TikTok. And YouTube is Hollywood TV Astrology. There's I mostly do Hollywood TV on basically my my Instagram. There's one this week with oh gosh, with Shane. I'm
Artist? Is Shane an artist? Am I getting this right?
He is an astrologer. It was
And an
Shane
artist?
Powers.
Okay.
We'll discover that. We'll
So you
that. I feel a little bit embarrassed. I really should know that. That's something. Sometimes
I can't remember anything, but if people do follow you, Astrological Masonry on IG, they can keep in touch. They can watch the IG lives. They'll get all that information. You have a mailing list on your website as well?
Yes, actually, I need to, subscribe to the mailing list. That's something I've actually been working on. I've been trying to actually get my email right with that. But definitely subscribe to the mailing list, be a part of those, be a part of some things that I send out, part of the news, get kind of a little bit notice of when things are going to be released. But got a lot of things I'm planning. Really excited about this year. First, actually, I got to kind of move myself first I'm focused on that right now. Yeah, physically got to move myself, my partner and her dog. So focusing on that, but still catch me with that. Hollywood TV, talismans that I sell. I have some solar talismans, Mars talismans, Saturn talismans, Mercury talismans, moon talismans, and I have Venus oil. I don't have any Venus actual talismans right now. So yeah. But
All
other
the
than
things.
that, yeah. Oh yeah, we love it. And
I love it too. And I am Vivi Henriette of Art of the Zodiac. And I just implore everyone to follow this channel, follow me in all the places, but subscribe to Art of the Zodiac on Substack. That's the best way. I get newsletters that contain, you'll get written interviews, links to all the podcasts and videos there. So it's fabulous. If you want to pay me, I love it because it lets me do this, but you don't have to. It's free. And I just released an episode with the co-founder of Psychedelics Today, which I'm super stoked about. So that's available. Listen to it. Give me your feedback. Share your review, I should say. And yeah, that's it. And this has been wonderful, Mason. Thank you to everyone who's joined us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Follow her. Make sure to follow her. She does really great stuff. Seriously, she's really great. And give her your money, damn it.
Thank you for being my Mars. I appreciate that. I appreciate your martial enthusiasm.
Oh yeah. Hey,
it's so good.
Hey, you do really good work. Honestly, I'm very grateful for it. I've been supported by it. That's something that I'm really, really grateful for. Really, I've benefited a lot, and so I definitely want to plug you. Definitely want to tell people to follow you because these talks, these conversations that you do, they touch the heart, and also it integrates you with community in a large way. It's some way that you can interact with community through online, and I think that's we need that. We need that, especially as
I'm saying you're going to move to LA. I'm excited about this.
Heck yeah! Heck yeah! Heck yeah!
Hang in person would be great.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! Okay. Yes. Yeah, I'd love
but
to.
I'm officially going to hop on the Peloton. So have a gorgeous day. And thank you to everyone who's joined us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.